Oh, I think it's fine to continue to talk, but I think the most important talk we have is with our allies and making sure that Russia understands that if they take action to overthrow the government in Ukraine or to invade Ukraine, that there will be consequences of a severe nature. We didn't do that as effectively as we should have after the invasion by Russia of Georgia, after their prior invasion taking Crimea. They've got to understand that there will be extraordinary consequence. And military options are things we don't talk about, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors and make sure, or excuse me, with our allies and make sure, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors and make sure, or excuse me, with our allies and make sure, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors and make, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors.
The dark truth about Mitt Romney. Why is Mitt Romney so anti-Trump? Well, Romney has his own problems that make it clear that he's not a real conservative and underscore why Romney is so maliciously anti-Trump. Romney's foreign policy advisor, Joseph Cofer Black, served on the board of Burisma's holding along with Hunter Biden. This is from the Huffington Post in 2017. Former director of CIA's Counterintelligence Center joined Burisma's board, and he will help to expand the company's global presence in Ukraine. Burisma Group, an independent oil and company with operations in Ukraine, announced that Joseph Cofer Black will join the company's board of directors. Joseph Cofer Black past experience includes director of CIA Counterintelligence Center between 1999 and 2002 and ambassador at large for the counterterrorism between 2002 and 2004. With such a strong background, Mr. Black will be leading the company's security and strategic development efforts. Black went on to say, knowing all too well that the energy and security challenges of Ukraine have had to manage, I am pleased to join the board of a privately held company that has been continuously working to ensure Ukraine's energy security. Yes, Cofer Black and Mitt Romney and Joe Biden's son all stole Ukrainian oil by invading the Ukraine and turning over their oil preserves to Burisma, and they've all made off like bandits. Cofer Black, who served as special advisor on the Romney 2012 presidential campaign, was listed on the Burisma board the same time that Hunter Biden was, according to the Federalist. Ooh, this is not good either. Romney invested in Stericycle, a baby fetus disposal company long utilized by Planned Parenthood. Yikes. Earlier this year, Mitt Romney nearly landed in a political perilous controversy when the Huffington Post reported that in 1999 the GOP presidential candidate had been part of an investment group that invested $75 million in Stericycle, a medical waste disposal firm that had been attacked by anti-abortionist group for disposing of aborted fetuses collected from family planning clinics. The company said Romney left the firm in February of 1999 to run the troubled 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, and that likely had nothing to do with the deal. The matter never became a campaign issue, but documents filed at Bain Capital said that Stericycle with the security the matter never became a campaign issue. Mother Jones lists Romney as an active participant in the investment, and that this deal helped Stericycle, a company with poor safety record, grow while yielding tens of millions of dollars in profits for Romney and his partners. The documents, one of them are signed by Romney himself, also contradict the official account that Romney's exited from Bain. Romney's Bain Capital accepted an early investment from Robert Maxwell, father of the late pedophile and accused human trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's companion Ghislaine Maxwell. This is according to The Telegraph in 2012. Maxwell, the late owner of the Mirror of the newspaper, invested $2 million in Mr. Romney's first private equity fund, which launched the controversial career in finance to the Republican presidential challenger, now cites the proof of his ability to lead the U.S. into prosperity. Okay, Mitt Romney is also connected with Les Wexner, also a very fond and close companion of Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, gave Jeffrey Epstein close to $1 billion, and that New York City apartment that's listed as the most expensive apartment in Manhattan. So Les Wexner, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, and Mitt Romney all have very close ties. And why wouldn't a Mormon like Mitt Romney be closely tied to these sex and human traffickers? Well, that's what polygamy basically is. Polygamy originated in the slave trafficking of women who were trafficked as a result of war in the Middle East. That's why the men were all killed in a war, and the women and children were taken as slaves, put in burqas, and trafficked for sexual favors along the trade routes. And this is what we call Mormon polygamy, using women and children throughout history as sexual trade, as the sexual trade markets require. So this is what you call the Mormon polygamy, turning sin into a virtue, turning sin into a celestial principle, turning the marketing and sex trafficking of women, children into a, yes, Mormon heaven. That is what polygamy is. So women who defend polygamy, you are complicit in not only your own children's demise, but in your own spiritual degradation by men such as Mitt Romney, who would turn traitorous against their own country, invade Ukraine, and make money off selling the oil, selling sex trafficking women into as Ukrainian models who are trafficked into the sex trade.
Oh, I think it's fine to continue to talk, but I think the most important talk we have is with our allies and making sure that Russia understands that if they take action to overthrow the government in Ukraine or to invade Ukraine, that there will be consequences of a severe nature. We didn't do that as effectively as we should have after the invasion by Russia of Georgia, after their prior invasion taking Crimea. They've got to understand that there will be extraordinary consequences. And military options are things we don't talk about, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors and make sure, or excuse me, with our allies and make sure, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors and make sure, or excuse me, with our allies and make sure, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors and make, but other consequences we can align with our neighbors.
Well, that was a Freudian slip. Mitt Romney thinks he owns Ukraine and its oil fields and owns Burisma energy markets of the Ukraine. That he slipped and said, "Oh, our neighbors in the Ukraine," which means he identifies himself as being the owner of the Ukraine, and that Putin is now the invader, even though the Ukraine has been thousands of years a Russian territory. Mitt Romney's Freudian slip shows that he has no loyalty to the U.S., no loyalty to the Ukraine, but he thinks he owns everything. He thinks he's entitled to exploit women, children, and the oil of other countries because for some reason, I don't know why, he's a Mormon patriarch that somehow believes he and Muhammad and the Middle East are entitled to exploit the entire world. Excuse me. I don't mean to slander the Middle Eastern sheikhs with the Mormon criminals such as Romney, whose criminal activity spans generation back to Parley Pratt, who was murdered by an angry husband who shot Parley Pratt, his great-great-uncle, for taking off with his wife in some kind of scandalous polygamy con game. That is what you call Mormondom. They are entitled and completely phony baloney.
Align with our neighbors and make sure, or excuse me, with our allies and make sure that the Russians understand that this time it's going to make understand that there will be extraordinary consequence. And military options are things we don't talk about, that the Russians understand that this time it's going to make a real difference. What does that look like?
Article from Politico. Trump world's latest attack on Romney. Tie him to Burisma. That shouldn't be too difficult. The MAGA machine is attempting to turn President Donald Trump's latest nemesis, Senator Mitt Romney, into the next Hunter Biden. You should be worried. Trump in recent days took a new turn in his attack on the Utah senator, varying from assailing his character and loyalty and tossing him into the wilds of Ukraine. Trump over the weekend tweeted several conservative personalities and stories attempting to connect the Republican senator to the Ukrainian energy company Burisma and its former board member Hunter Biden, two parties at the center of the Trump's attempt to quid pro quo. The allegation was featured in several far-right blog posts. A senior advisor from Romney's 2012 presidential campaign was on Burisma's board of directors. Oh my goodness. And that by voting to impeach Trump last week. Romney was covering for his fellow swamp crony. While Trump's campaign had highlighted the allegations earlier, the post-impeachment flurry of tweets, for the first time, Trump himself acknowledged the theory. At one point, the president retweeted random followers' newfound suspicion. Romney is covering up his part in the corruption in Ukraine. This has nothing to do with the truth or God. He is a desperate man. The truth will come out. Prior to Sunday, Trump had the GOP first anti-Mitt salvo centered on a familiar act of name-calling. Romney is a failed presidential candidate. Jealous that Trump won the presidency, Romney craves the attention of the liberal media. Romney, a sanctimonious do-gooder, is a coward who wears mom's jeans. The Burisma attack signaled the new front in the Trump world's attempt to punish Romney as to keep the Burisma narrative alive. After all, Trump's attempted quid pro quo centered around his obsession with launching an investigation into whether Joe Biden, his ostentatious rival in 2020, illegally leaned on the Ukrainian government to protect his son's board seat, a storyline Trump adamantly clung to during his impeachment trial. Should Romney look complicit, then so much better for explaining his vote. Now, go for black. This was Mitt Romney's campaign manager, sat on the board of Burisma along with Hunter Biden, and yes, Les Wexner, Epstein's very close companion and multi-billionaire benefactor to Epstein, also donated lavishly to Mitt Romney's presidential bid and campaign. And there we have him, Mr. Ukraine himself. Yes, Remember when he just made the Freudian slip about our neighbors? Ooh, I mean our allies, as if Romney believes Ukraine is his new homeland. Romney, the big Burisma, big investor, Les Wexner, Jeffrey Epstein, Hunter Biden's laptop, and yes, Mitt Romney. This is from Axios. Romney slams Senate GOP Biden's investigation as a political exercise. Here we go again. Senator Mitt Romney, Republican from Utah, on Wednesday criticized his Republican colleagues on the Senate Homeland Security Committee for their probe into Joe Biden and his son's dealings in the Ukraine, saying that it has the earmarks of a political exercise. Why it matters. Ron Johnson, Republican Wisconsin, who is leading the investigation, told supporters Monday that it is about a week we're going to learn said Monday that in about a week we're going to learn a whole lot more about Vice President Biden's unfitness for office. The committee's investigation of Hunter Biden's work in Ukrainian gas company Burisma at the time when Joe Biden was leading the Obama administration Ukraine policy. What he's saying is the investigation from the onset has earmarks of political exercise, Romney said at a hearing Wednesday. I am fearful that comments made in the media recently have confirmed that perspective. I do not believe it is very important that the Committee of Congress, and ours in particular, not fall into the increasing pattern that we are seeing, which is using taxpayer dollars and the power of Congress to do political work. This is the role of campaigns. The big picture. Romney comments come after Johnson canceled a vote that would have issued a subpoena to the U.S. ambassador of Slovakia, Bridget Brink, as part of the Burisma probe. The committee did, however, authorize the subpoenas Wednesdays targeting former Obama administration official roles during the transition of the Trump administration. Romney voted in favor of those subpoenas. Romney said the probe in the Obama's officials could dodge obvious political implications by focusing on specific allegations. Flashback. Romney in March said the investigation appears politically motivated, but a spokesman for the senators said the next day changed his mind and is receiving assurances from Johnson that the probe would be handled behind closed door. Yes, that would make me very nervous if I were Romney, because it's going to open a whole can of worms, Cope for Black, Burisma, and Joe Biden. This is from Vanity Fair. The Senate GOP Biden's investigation may have a problem. Mitt Romney. When President Donald Trump was impeached and then acquitted the U.S. Senate, the president got a clear boost of his fellow Republicans who were unwilling to admit to the president's wrongdoing, no matter how damning it might be, except for Mitt Romney from Utah. He was basically very anti-Trump. Members of the Senate GOP have taken Biden's recent surge in primary race as a sign to trump up their investigation into the former vice president and his dealings in the Ukraine. Johnson and Grassley, for their part, claim that the investigation into the potential Democratic nominee during the Democratic primary season is somehow not at all political. While Johnson and Grassley are being cagey about the reasons for the investigating Biden, however, Trump has made no attempt to hide his plan to use Burisma again, his likely 2020 rival. Trump has made no attempt to hide his plan to use Burisma against his likely 2020 rival, and whether the senators attended or not in the investigation. What still remains unseen, of course, is how Biden will fight back. The candidate has already hit back against Trump attacks on his son and the Senate investigation in his campaign, saying in a statement that Johnson just accidentally did him an enormous favor by explicitly admitting that he is abusing congressional authority. So, I believe that Mr. Ukraine himself, Mitt Romney, has a bit of a problem ahead of him.